welcome to another episode of Minute to Midnight. Hi, I'm Chris.
And this is Tony, signing in for another day.
Yeah, it's been a wee while, Tony, since we've made one of these.
It has, yeah. Life has kept us busy and we haven't had a chance, but it's good to be back.
I've been away in that time, but yes, we're back.
Yeah, well, your life was busy on holiday. Lucky for some.
Had a week out, so yeah, that was good.
Yep, cool. So what have we got there today, Chris?
Well, we've got a lot to catch up on. I think the last time we spoke, there had been, since then, there's been a crane collapse in Dubai, which was a few weeks ago now.
Was it Dubai or was Mecca, Saudi Arabia?
Sorry, Mecca, yeah.
Yeah, yes.
I get mixed up. Sorry, it was in Mecca.
Yeah.
And the start of the gathering of those in Mecca for their yearly...
stampede, I would call it.
Yeah,
well,
yeah. What do they call it? It's a pilgrimage, isn't it?
That's the one. Yeah,
that's it. And yeah, that was quite interesting seeing that unfold, and I'd say that tongue in cheek, if you like, because it did unfold. That
yes.
Boom folded over as it fell, and there was a lot of casualties.
And what do you think of that? You know a bit about cranes. What do you think about the fact that it came down?
Well, I look at that, and from a natural point of view, that would not happen. It was certainly a supernatural event, I believe, that took place.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a big machine.
Yep.
And I think there could be a message to that as well, to what happened.
Well, it happened on 9/11 as well, and it was owned by the Bin Ladens, which is quite a bit more than a coincidence, perhaps.
Well, the company that was doing the project was owned by Bin Ladens, but the crane's actually owned by a company in Germany.
Ah, okay.
And and that would not happen. I saw some shots of it. There was some still shots taken of the crane prior to the collapse, and it showed a bolt of lightning, which was unusual. Normally a bolt of lightning would hit the highest point of an object. Well, it hit down low, and then a gust of wind, and it had to be an almighty gust to pull that machine over, because it wasn't lifting anything at the time. It was just... It had been laden. It was sorry about the pun, but yeah, it was just sitting there, and that force against it had to be great. And as I say, I believe it's a supernatural event more than a natural event. But that's my opinion.
Yep. Okay. What else have we got there, Chris? Any other?
Since we've spoken last, there hasn't been a lot happen in the markets.
It's been quiet, hasn't it? Unusually quiet.
Yeah, it's almost like the calm before the storm.
Yeah, that's what I think.
But in me, I just feel something is up. Something's afoot, if you like, and it's just a matter of time. I mean, the markets yesterday, they tumbled a little bit across the globe. New Zealand followed suit, and they tumbled a little bit, but yeah, there's a lot of rumblings. There was that main event that took place where there was a big takedown in the markets globally, and we are expecting something bigger.
Yes, yeah, and I see that the Federal Reserve announced no interest rate increase last week, which to me says that they're not feeling the economy, they're not feeling confident in the economy that they could raise the rates.
Yeah, but they come across as though they're confident. They're confident that the economy's moving ahead. And
well, they have to be, don't they?
Well, they do. But it was interesting because the gold market went up. Yeah. And has continued to go up since that announcement.
Yes, it hasn't moved a lot since, but it hasn't gone down. It's gone up a bit. Same with silver. It's held its line that it had before as well.
Yeah, it's sideways.
Silver up a little bit and then sideways. But yeah. I know there's a big squeeze, a lot of squeeze going on in the actual market to deliver the physicals, especially silver.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a few commentaries, and they've come from the left, if you like, and they're saying one of them is I think Kitco's one, and Perth Mint. And they both hold certificates, if you like, paper promises. They've come out and said, oh, no, there's no squeeze. We're fine. We've got lots of silver. We've got lots of gold. Yeah, well, you have if you're only issuing paper promises. But the actual physical stuff, I bet you they're having trouble trying to deliver.
Yeah, that seems to be something I'm hearing all over the place, across the board, really.
And for those out there that aren't understanding what we're talking about here, there is two markets here. There's the market which dictates the price, and then there's the physical market. And unfortunately, the physical market is dictated by the price. But if you go to buy an ounce of gold, if you like, the price is not going to be the spot price that is set by the paper market. And there's not enough inventory there to support that paper market. In other words, if everyone decided they wanted physical, there's a good chance you won't get it. Well, you won't get it because there's not enough physical to go around with that which is in the market. I read an article today and it said that there's 1 billion ounces per day of silver traded in any given market, yet there's only 800 million ounces produced in a year.
Yeah, so it's fake, isn't it?
It's so fake, it's not funny.
Yeah.
So you imagine that over a year, the amount of silver that's sold in the paper market, and if everyone decided to cash in on that for physical,
it's impossible.
It is, but what's it going to do to the price?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's why we advocate, holding silver in particular. I mean, it's good to hold gold, but most of our listeners would only be able to afford silver.
And silver's likely to be the biggest mover as well because of the ratio so out of whack.
Yeah, at the moment it's 75 to 1. And historically, it's 10 or 15 to 1.
Yeah, been reading a book by Michael Maloney about investing, Guide to Investing in Gold and Silver, and he said historically 12 to 1.
That book's great, by the way.
It is.
Yeah.
I highly recommend anyone read that book.
Yeah, if you can get a copy of that, I'd urge you to get it. It gives you a good historical analysis of the silver market and gives a layman's understanding as to how it all works.
I think there's people that have been, thinking September, okay, we're already in the last stretch of September and people were expecting something was going to happen in the earlier parts of September. And now I think perhaps people are lulled into a bit of a sleep again, a false sense of security, many people, because nothing too much has happened in the early part of September.
Yeah, and I've been a bit despondent as to how it has gone. And that's not to say I was hoping for something, but there's been so much out there, and I thought something would happen. And we've still got, days left in September for something to happen.
Yeah.
But it sort of think, oh no, you get a sort of sense of, are we right? Is everyone else right?
I know. I mean, for me, you probably know I've said the 28th and 29th of September is what I expected would be the big time. Well, any time from about the 22nd, 23rd onwards. But having said that, you can get to the point where you're anticipating things so much, and then if it doesn't happen in that time frame, it's easy to go back to sleep or get, like you say, despondent. But I think it's important to actually hold the course, whether the event happens in September or not, because the cycle is going to come round, and it's better to make sure that you don't lose heart or go back to sleep, because it's all extra weeks. Every extra week, every day, week, month that we get extra to prepare is good, because it means you can get that little bit much better prepared for when this event does, or series of events does finally kick in. And rather than thinking, oh, it hasn't happened, it's sort of like, yes, we've got a little bit more time. So I think now's a time to take note and go, well, what have I done off my, hopefully checklist. Hopefully you've had a checklist. What have you done to prepare? And then look at your checklist and think, what do you still need to do? And I know personally for myself, there are things that, I haven't got there. I had a list of things I wanted to do, and I have run out of time. Well, haven't run out of time because things haven't happened yet, but I didn't meet my own deadline. But it's like, okay, so time is still ticking along. I can get that little bit more of the things done which I had hoped to be prepared. So perhaps look at it that way and just hold the course. Stay the duration of the course, because it is going to happen.
And I mean, timing is not ours.
No.
And it is risky to put a time on things. And biblically, it says no one knows the day or the hour. And also in 1 Thessalonians 5, it says that for when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction comes upon them. So we can't rest on our laurels. We've got to be ready at all times. And I mean, the Bible's so clear about that too, that we should be ready in season and out of season. You agree there, Tony?
Yeah, I do. I mean, we've maybe had a little bit of a lull, but things have still been happening. Like you say, that event in Mecca. I also see Michael Snyder of the Economic Collapse blogs just put out a thing today where he's saying to watch Germany and watch Deutsche Bank, because basically in 2014, Deutsche Bank were trading $50 a share, and since then they've dropped by 40%. And the German DAX stock index is close to 20% down from its all-time high that was set in April. In fact, Deutsche Bank is also aiming to cut back 23,000 jobs, which is about a quarter of their total staff, through layoffs. Similar sort of thing happened to Lehman Brothers before they collapsed.
Man,
So
that's really interesting.
it is. I'd be. Well, thanks to Michael Snyder, those are little things I've taken out of what he's written. It's a really good article from the Economic Collapse blog. But I find it interesting that David Wilkerson back in the 1970s actually had a vision, and he said that the economic collapse would begin in Germany and then flow to Europe, Asia, and America. So watch Germany. I mean, we watch Greece, etc., and China.
I'm going to say something left field here, and it comes back to that collapse of that crane in Mecca. And I had a dream, and I think I shared it on one of these episodes. Recently, I had a dream about a crane collapsing and related it to a share market crash coming.
Yeah, you did, yeah.
Yeah. And I see some correlation to that actual physical event happening as well, and this could be a precursor to what's coming, another collapse. Now, it's interesting you mentioned there that the German share market could be the catalyst here, because the crane that was involved in that collapse in Mecca was actually a German-built crane.
Yes, you mentioned that.
Yeah. So this could represent the share market as well in Germany, having been in a boom recently as well.
Yeah.
And that boom collapsing in Mecca, I mean...
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah.
We'll put that one out there and see. Yeah.
And with the Muslim invasion, the refugee crisis.
Yeah, well, that's all come up in the last few weeks.
It has, and that's going to put strain on the economies of Germany and Europe as well. With all of those new immigrants. Though I suspect whilst there are many genuine refugees, there's also, many of them look like an army to me, an army of well-dressed men, Muslim men. I mean, is it just part of a Muslim invasion of Europe and to take down Europe? Yeah, ultimately.
And there's a lot of political correctness going alongside with this too. I mean, I've seen some propaganda within a lot of the televised stuff coming out of there.
Yeah.
And it is propaganda.
Yeah.
You don't have to be an Einstein to work out that a lot of it's staged.
Yeah.
And I go back to Goebbels, way back in the Second World War. I think he was Hitler's right-hand man at the time. And he made a statement back then, if you tell the people a lie long enough, they'll believe it.
Yeah.
And I believe the media's being used here to show us a lie.
Yeah.
and we're believing it.
Because a lot of those supposed refugees are not from Syria for a start. They come from other parts of Africa, but many of them have actually not come directly from Syria. They've been in Turkey anyway, which was already a safe haven. And I've seen footage of some of the refugees arriving in parts of Europe and refusing the food given to them because it's served to them by infidels. I mean,
I've
how
seen that
hungry
too.
are they? You know?
And the other thing too is how the media's portrayed for the likes of the Hungarian authorities acting wrong, and also the UN.
Yeah.
The head of the UN even came out, and I thought, man, but the UN's probably not.
Well, why aren't the Muslim countries helping them, you know? They're not taking the refugees in the Muslim
because
countries.
there's something else behind it.
Exactly. I mean, they're prepared to spend money on mosques, donate money. I think Saudi Arabia were prepared to donate money to build 200 mosques, but they won't take the refugees. So something's not quite adding up there.
Well, it was interesting to see that there's two countries in particular that wouldn't take them. One was Saudi Arabia and the other one was Israel.
Yeah.
And for whatever reasons, but you can look that out for yourself online and check it
Yeah.
out. Check out a lot of the stuff we're talking about here now. Look at it with a broad mind, not just tunnel vision.
Obviously we're not the genuine refugees. We're not saying you turn them away and let them go hungry and starve. But the point is that there just seems to be a bigger agenda going on here.
Definitely.
And the same America, Obama's saying they're going to take, 200,000 of them?
Yeah. Coming back to the Hungarian authority thing, is what I saw on television.
It was an eyesore, yeah.
Yeah. Was these immigrants, these refugees, actually throwing stones at the locals and at the police, at the authorities. And in retaliation, they water-bombed them with water cannons. And then the UN came and slandered, really, really hit them between the eyes and said, hey, you guys shouldn't be doing this to these poor people. But it was the poor people that were creating anarchy, if you like, and causing a situation. But the authorities get blamed. The nation that's being invaded is...
The thing is, they arrive in these countries and instead of assimilating, they actually then, the more bulk of them arrive, the more they decide that they want the country to be run under Sharia law. So... I don't know. Anyway.
And that's coming back to that assimilation that you're talking about. That's why Saudi Arabia and Israel won't take them in, because of past, in the past they've done that.
Yeah.
And because of they can't assimilate, therefore they won't take them because they know they won't fit in to society for whatever reason.
Right. So that's interesting. Just backtracking away to the economic thing again. I don't know if I shared my dream on here on one of our previous shows or not, but I'm just going to share it again, a dream I had back in April, because we're in the Rugby World Cup at the moment, and this dream I had related to a rugby match between France and Italy in this particular dream I had. And I saw it on a life-size TV, and I was listening to a commentary, and I heard the commentator talking about how well France was getting it together and that Italy wasn't getting it together so well. And suddenly there was something like a small explosion and a part of the grandstand collapsed onto the field. And there were injured and dead people, and officials and others, including players, began to gather round the fallen section of the stand. It wasn't a large section, really, but suddenly I had a terrible feeling that it was a setup. Perhaps it was going to be a terrorist attack, or I wasn't sure, but I had sudden fear that it was something ahead of a big one, a really big one, and I knew it would kill many more people. And so I started to panic and thought about trying to get away, but then I realised that I wasn't actually there, but was watching it unfold on a life-sized screen. And I woke up before the disaster that I knew was coming actually happened. It was like I could sense it was going to go like a giant whoosh, You imagine something starts somewhere and then it spreads globally. And I was thinking at the time maybe the part of the stand fallen was talking about Greece, the economy of Greece. Is it an economic thing? And the little piece of the stand falling could have been Greece, or maybe it wasn't, but that was my thoughts. Could have been Greece falling, and then it would flow to Italy and France and then Europe and then the world. Whether it was a terrorist attack or an economic collapse, well, I don't know. But it was just interesting. I said to you, didn't I, the other day, Chris? I said, remember that dream I had about rugby, and it was about France and Italy in a game? And then you said to me, you said, the World Cup's on. And then what did we figure out?
The game was that day.
It was that actual day, and I hadn't even given it a thought, So nothing happened in that particular game, but perhaps it's a timing thing. The World Cup's on.
Yeah.
So I guess watch this space, you know.
But just that significance of the countries involved in the dream.
Yeah.
And where it might all fit in, if anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it is sort of interesting how September is the month of the World Cup.
Yeah.
Back in, when was it, February, the Economist came out with a picture on the front. It showed you a lot of what was going to take place in 2015, and at the bottom I remember seeing a rugby ball with the world, with an atlas embedded in it, and it was like, the Rugby World Cup's going to take place this year, and a lot of imagery that was in that picture has actually taken place. In that imagery, I remember there was an atomic bomb that had gone off in the right-hand side up in the top, and that probably relates to what happened in China a month or two ago, where that that explosion occurred, and
Tianjin,
and I'm not saying that was atomic, but it was certainly
could well have been
representative of that, the way the cloud was, etc. And there's so much imagery taking place already. If you get to have a look, go online and have a look at that. Just type in Economist in your search engine and have a look at that picture back. I think it might have been
January.
January of 2015.
I figured out a bunch of things off that, actually. I haven't got my notes in front of me, but one of the things I know, I have not seen anyone else figure out, was there were two arrows in the ground, and people going, what do they mean?
11.3 and 11.5.
Yeah, well, actually, if you look at the way I've said in the previous show, the way these people that run it are Luciferians, and they're very much into the whole occult and numerology. Well, what you do is you add those two numbers together, 11, 3, right? 1 and 3 is 5, and the other one is 11, 5. 1 and 5 is 7. It's 75. That's what it's significant. The two arrows are saying 75, and if you go right up above, directly above, you've got Winston Churchill, and it was the 75th anniversary.
Oh, wow.
You also go down, and you've got Alice through the looking glass kind of a thing. Just I'm going
Alice
from
in
memory
Wonderland.
here. Yeah. And also there's a baseball, and it was 75 years from the first televised baseball game. So there's a whole lot of other things. We could have done this in another show. I don't have all my notes in front of me, but I actually worked out a lot of things that I haven't seen anyone else come up with.
Yeah.
I'm really surprised more people hadn't worked out the arrows in the 75, because that's just straight obvious to me.
Yeah, and there, if you're not in agreement with like the Illuminati stuff, I mean, there was quite an Illuminati type symbol there, in that
Angela Merkel had
her
pyramid,
hands,
the button and the eye, and
it was like the Eye of Horus, which represents the Eye of Lucifer, etc., which is part of the imagery.
There's also a tortoise down the bottom there, which I think represents a Fabian society and their goal of slowly implementing global socialism. But notice it has 9 toes and 11 exclamation marks or lines above it, which could symbolise 9/11. So are they using 9/11 to advance the socialist cause? And underneath the outstretched golden arm of the Prime Minister of India, we see a piggy bank fleeing. And on the other side, we have a panic board, which is coloured yellow, and yellow is the colour of ancient Chinese dynasties, and it appears to be, what appears to be a yuan is tumbling in there. We also have the words Federal Reserve and what appears to be half the words of China and ISIS on there, as well as panic and green light. and in front of it we have a Chinese panda flexing its muscles, showing it's unhappy. I also noticed that Prime Minister of India is all dressed in gold. I don't know if you've seen that, but one thing, if any listeners are aware who the guy with the glasses is by Obama's shoulder, because down the bottom he's got, from memory, he's got a ghost coming out of his shoe with a holiday brochure. And I'm thinking, holiday brochure? That sounds to me like a bank holiday.
Oh, right.
So I'd like to know who the guy is. If anybody actually knows who the person is, maybe that would shed some light there.
Right.
Another thing I remember is a woman with a nest egg.
An egg. Yeah.
Yep, I think that's a visualising of a nest egg. You think you've got this nest egg, but it's going to fly away because it's got wings. So what you think you have is going to fly away and disappear.
Wow.
So anyway, I mean, I'm going off memory. I don't have the picture in front of me.
That could all be to do with, as you say, a bank holiday coming, our open bank resolution where they come and take our money out of our banking system. Once again, I want to urge you listeners, particularly from here in Kiwi land, we've got what they call the open bank resolution that was passed in Parliament 18 months ago, which gives banks the right to steal your money out of your account, which has happened recently in Cyprus and I think again in Greece. And when a moment comes that a crisis comes and the banks shut down, they will in that period of time take money out of our bank account as unsecured creditors to try and pay their way out of the crisis using our money, our savings, and they've got the right to do so through the open bank resolution.
Yeah, but I mean, so most people are thinking that if they have some money put away in the bank, that they're safe.
Yeah.
That's not the case at all, is it?
I read an article this week in the, I think it was on Stuff, and a Dominion article, I think it was. And it was a writer had put together, or a journalist put together a piece about, preparing for a rainy day. And in that, they used all situations that could evolve for you to save ready for a rainy day. And there was one situation which is more likely than all these situations that they wrote about, they didn't write about, and that one situation is in the event of a financial crisis. But all these other crises in one's life, to prepare them for a rainy day, were in there, which is interesting, because they're not preparing us for a crash of some sort in the financial arena.
No.
But
we know it's coming.
It's coming. It's so obvious.
Yeah.
And they don't want you to be prepared for that because, one, they don't want to bank run and create a problem, which is, understandable.
Yeah.
But two, when it does happen and there will be a bank run, you won't be able to get your money.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So you need to protect yourself now.
And that's the same sort of thing what we were talking about, the paper, silver and gold, because when there becomes a run on the paper and silver and gold markets, and they get swamped because there's like 200 to 1 leveraging on a lot of that, the people are not going to be able to get it. If they think they've got it, whether all they've got is a paper certificate, they're going to find they don't actually own what they think they own at all.
But those that do own it,
in the physical form,
are going to be in a good position.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's happened time and time again throughout history, the fact that the cycles come round to a fiat currency crash and precious metals actually coming through the winner.
Yeah, I'll just read you a few snippets from this article.
Yeah, go for it.
I mean, it starts off by saying, we were taught as children that it pays to have money set aside for a rainy day.
Yep.
And so they say, and that's fair enough, I don't argue that. But the writer goes on and talks about such rainy day situations. And the writer also says the trouble is it rains often. However, there is a big difference between a few light showers and a torrential downpour. So they're talking about losing your job through whatever, because of whatever. It might be redundancy, it might be your health. And it is good to set aside funds for those situations. But as I said before, the only thing they didn't allow for is a financial crisis. And we need to be prepared more so for that than any other issues that pertain to our well-being.
I've been giving it some thought and thinking, well, just say we were wrong, and I don't think we will be, but if you had silver and gold, the cycle is going to come back round. So whether it's now or whether it's later, it's always going to come back round. So you can't really lose out. And also, if there's a natural disaster and you've prepared your other things, your clothing, your food, your shelter, your water, and all that, you can't go wrong.
No.
So whether the crisis happens in September or October, or it doesn't happen for months or whatever, you don't really lose out by being prepared. But if it does happen and you're not prepared, you lose out big time.
And I just read an article today on a website which I'll give you a link to, because I think they're a great site, these guys. They've got the site is Emergency Food New Zealand. They mentioned an article that came out in the New Zealand Herald, this must have been this past weekend, and which talks about the biggest risks to Auckland and Wellington, and Lloyd's of London put together all the major cities in the world regarding risk and what are the biggest risks. And for New Zealand, the first that they mentioned Auckland and Wellington as two of these cities of the 300 odd that were mentioned. And I'll just give you the similarities between Wellington and Auckland and what the risks are. Firstly, the top 5 Auckland and Wellington threats. First for Auckland was a market crash, so they were off the mark on that, right? Yep. So that's a big threat.
Yeah.
And that was the same for Wellington. And of course, the second threat for Auckland was a flood. For Wellington, it's an earthquake, which is understandable for Wellington. If you knew Wellington and what we're talking about here, Wellington is is overdue for a big earthquake. Third was oil price shock. That's something that's on the cards, I think, too. Lloyd's put this together, remember, so they know what's possibly coming. The third for Wellington was a flood. The fourth for Auckland was a volcanic eruption. And the fourth for Wellington is an oil price shock. And of course for Auckland, there are many volcanoes in Auckland, dormant ones, which could erupt at any time. And then the fifth was a human pandemic, which was interesting. And that was for both Wellington and Auckland. Now, the human pandemic was high up there. I would have thought there would be more risks, Tony.
Yeah.
I would have thought there would be other risks would have come before a human pandemic. Wellington, for example, is windy Wellington. Would you not think that damage from a wind event would be more of a risk than a human pandemic? So on that note, it's time to sign off. But hey, I just want to finish off with the 4 things that we need to have in order in our lives for what's coming ahead. Firstly, is we need our spiritual lives in order. We need that relationship with God through Jesus' Son. We need to be put right with God. Secondly, we need our shelter sorted and have our food in order. That's number 3, food and water. And number 4, we need to have our financial situation sorted, in that we have silver and gold if we can afford it. We have something in place to fall back on. We have physical cash even safely somewhere, so that when this crisis unfolds, you do have something to fall back on. So on that note, it's goodbye from me, Chris.
And from Tony. Catch you next time.